goodness, I did not realize I was in the prison.
And thank you.
2, 1. His signature as a commitment from National Disaster Management Unit. From CAM Communication, head of CAM Communication at Kenya Association of Manufacturers.
I just wanted to give you a very short, flyover CAM, and you see how this dovetails with our objectives, right? If you look at our vision, we want to be a world-class business membership organization. We're the fourth BMO, or the fourth country, to be accredited by ICCA. And we cannot be a globally, world-class BMO without doing what you're doing here today. Our mission is to promote competitiveness. And when you talk about competitiveness, we're talking about global competitiveness. By doing this and making sure that our organizations, our members, are first off the blocks from others in terms of implementing responsible care in use, disposal, transportation, as Job has said, of chemicals, we are again driving towards sustainability and competitiveness. Again, influencing the industrial growth is part of what we are doing today. 14 sectors, 1,300 active members across 41 out of 47 counties. We would love to have footprint in each and every county, but now we have representatives seated in those region headquarters representing the country. Our view and our hope is that we're going to cascade what you're discussing today to all these cluster members, because in each every one of these sectors and 53 subsectors and many more subsectors use chemicals. And we want to be able to cascade the knowledge that we get through ICCA to our members across those regions. And we are doing all this because we are central to the development of Kenya. Right now, our contribution as manufacturers to GDP is 7.8%. It should have been higher. If you go back 10 years, the graph looks like this. But we've been challenged to move to 20% by 2030. The question is it doable? It's doable. Is it easy? It's not easy. Will it happen? If we work together, it will happen. But what does it mean when we move from 7.8%? Today, we contribute to the public coffers in excess of 360 billion to taxes. 360 billion. Outside public sector, manufacturers have the highest waged employment at 352,000. Outside the public sector. Now, if you move to 20%, we move those jobs from 3, because that's 3x growth. Even if you just do a direct correlation, you move from 352,000 jobs to 1 million jobs plus. You move from 1 trillion contribution to over 5 trillion. So we put it there to demonstrate that it is possible for us to grow our manufacturing. Underneath this, we have 4 pillars. And the pillar number 1 is being globally competitive. And what you're doing today goes to that globally competitive industry. Safety. sustainability. All those things that we're going to be discussing here today goes under that pillar. And then, once we fix that, we're able to export. That's why we have another pillar called export-led growth strategy, which now has been adopted by the cabinet as part of the Kenya bottom-up economic transformation model. Export, export, export. As we export, we also develop SMEs to also be able to participate in that export and the growth of industry. But then, 30% of our members are in agro, and Kenya is an agricultural-based economy. And we put that aside as agriculture for industry. We are the largest off-takers of the, other than the open market, we are the largest off-takers of commercial, agro-based or the foods that are grown in the country. But in most cases, you found we are seated in our corner as manufacturers, farmers are in a different corner. In the middle, the system is broken. Farmers are crying, manufacturers are crying. As we speak today, if you take only one staple, that is maize, farmers don't have maize, manufacturers don't have the product. It's because sometimes of this broken system. So that is going to be our arrowhead to try to influence and see how do we actually impact the country from food security perspective and from manufacturing and agro-processing perspective.
As a manufacturer, depending on whichever sector you come from, you will always have certain responsibilities to uphold. While of course chemicals is where we are concentrating, but anything and everything in any production cycle is a raw material and it has a life cycle. If you realize today, 7.8 to 20% and all the challenges that are coming with us, on top of it, erratic changes of policies. But that's what we have learned how to live with, but we'll have to cope with them. And this is where responsible care becomes very critical. Self-regulating is very critical. Self-regulating is our lifeline. We, in some sectors like agrochemicals or veterinary and the like, I'm not sure it's any less in, say, pharmaceuticals, we are over-regulated, and thus we understand the meaning of regulations and how to manage those. So if you suddenly notice certain arms of the government have started becoming authorities, anti-counterfeit authority and the like, what does it mean? Extra regulations, extra cost for us, and yet we have to manage our businesses within our mandate. Regulators have stipulated policies. Those policies sometimes we don't understand, or the way they are implemented, there is a gap somewhere. So either we are resisting, we are finding it a burden, and that's not an excuse for you not to do what is required of us. Some policies, some regulations have been there, and either they were not enforced, so the time they get enforced, and in the manner they get enforced, again, we have a collision. This is why responsible care becomes very useful tool. The more we implement this tool in each of our institutions, the better for us to ring fence us on the long journey that we are going to have to achieve those numbers that have been just highlighted.
Let's be in no doubt, all chemicals are hazardous. The chemicals we rely on to sustain and maintain our quality of life are dangerous if they are misused and abused. And the Responsible Care Initiative, as our chairman would have told you, arose from a horrendous disaster in Bhopal, India, some time ago, where nearly 4,000 people died through a combination of ignorance and mismanagement on the part of the industry. The response was a safety, health and environmental initiative successfully used in Canada at the plant level, which was then expanded into a national program for safety, health and environmental protection with the emphasis on safe chemical management. And that's where we are today. The concept of responsible care has been well addressed by the previous speakers, and I thank them for their kind remarks. You have come on a journey where you have now reached the start line. Responsible care has no end point, nor does it have right answers. What it does is provide you with the opportunity to choose from a variety of product services, ethics aside, to best meet your needs as a country to safely manage your chemical inventory.
This initiative marks a significant milestone in our collective efforts to ensure the safe management of chemicals used in our day-to-day lives. This initiative underscores our commitment to promoting the conservation of the environment, safeguarding of human health, and advocating for the responsible use and disposal of chemicals. In a world where chemicals have become an integral part of our modern life, it is our responsibility to ensure that they are managed in a manner that minimizes risk, protects our environment, and uphold the well-being of our communities. The Responsible Care Initiative serves as a guiding light, illuminating our path towards achieving these noble objectives. By adopting the principles of responsible care, we acknowledge the need to integrate sustainability and safety into every stage of the chemical life cycle. From production to distribution, from use to disposal, we are committed to ensuring the best practices are followed and that the potential harm posed by these chemicals is mitigated through robust and proactive measures. Through this initiative, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and its partners are taking a proactive stance. They are championing transparency, accountability, and continuous improvement in the management of chemicals. By doing so, they are setting an example for industries across the nation, encouraging them to prioritize the health and well-being of our people and that of our environment.
Issue with regard to this launch is the fact that we are really moving the duty of care, because when we have self-regulation and self-control and standards from an initiative like this, it removes then this responsibility from an institution like ours. And self-regulation really helps and makes movement much easier. We know from the previous speakers that, of course, the chemicals industry plays a significant role in the GDP of this country. But again, the flip side of this conversation is the harm, the potential harm to the environment and also to human health. And therefore, I believe that part of the conversations around what we are launching today are to see how this can move forward in a holistic way, so that we are able to demonstrate contribution without really the adverse effects, because the previous speaker said that all chemicals really are, I think to use the word dangerous, that's the word he used, or harmful. And therefore, people have spoken here from various perspectives, from the perspectives of particle physicists, environmental chemists, biologists, and so on. So we must bring this vision of the current administration, because generally when such initiatives move forward, it's the very, very small, if we call it that, players who are left behind. And there is this slogan around leaving no one behind. And therefore these small players, they handle a lot of chemicals of whatever nature, even in Kenya here. And therefore, as we move forward, we must find ways of also bringing them on board. So this is, it's against this backdrop that I think that when we look at some of the focus areas with this initiative, process safety, pollution prevention, distribution, employee health, and so on, these are important conversations as the country tries to industrialize with regard to our Vision 2030.
It's a nice thing to have to set the standards yourself. It is good. You don't wait for that, what you call over-regulation. Because when you set the standards, when you innovate, when you come up with something and you are doing it and you know what you want, and it's of course within that responsible, being a responsible member of the community, you set the standards that people will come and follow. Of course, in the sector of the environment, what we are trying to do is making sure that where you are, where you stay, where you do business, where you actually do your things, you leave it better than you found it. And of course, part of government's responsibility is to make sure that the very small percentage of members of the citizenry who are deviant by nature. Of course, human beings, we are all, different in our own ways. It is to make sure that we remain focused on the national aspirations and the goals, and of course, within a given time, the strategic plans that are, what the electorate voted the government in to go and implement. So if the government in place is saying we want a clean environment, of course that government is there to make sure that the policies and regulations are towards that clean and sustainable environment. And to this end, we come up with so many policies and regulations and laws and rules and yet more, policy statements and gazettements of so many things. And people are quick to say, government is over-regulating. It is a conversation that is there all over the world. When I talk to my friends in Europe, those in manufacturing or trade, they complain about EU having so many regulations. And being a member of the EU in Europe, you have to abide by so many of those regulations without exception. Otherwise, you are not able to trade, you are not, your goods are not going to be transported, or you are not going to export, even within the European Union. And it was rightly put earlier that Kenya is a member of the international community. We are a member of the East Africa community, we are a member of the COMESA, the World Trade Organization, and because of that, we need to ensure that our manufacturers, our traders, our producers, of course, meet with the standards that are set in the world. Otherwise, you will manufacture something within the country and it will not leave the boundary of Kenya. And of course, then you are not contributing to the GDP that my friend said, want to grow the GDP from 7.8% to 20%. Because if, for instance, you manufacture within a very careless, irresponsible way, even the industry players around you will shun your products.